Okay, how about a homemade dad joke? Ready? Here goes. What do you call a Russian farm animal that's been left outside for too long? A moss cow. Get it? Moss cow? If you're driving up or down Highway 1 north of San Francisco, you're bound to notice the strange looking Russian like spires on the west side of the road. Well, that's Fort Ross. If you have an hour or so, you should pull over and check it out. It has a nice visitor center with a modest exhibit area and also screens a 15-minute film which runs throughout the day. Operating hours tend to be 10 to 4:30 roughly. For this video, I thought we would, after completing our look at the visitor center, go through the back door and make our way to the fort. As we explore the site visually, I thought I would tell you some more about the place. The Russians came to this area in the early 1800s. Previously, the land had been occupied by about 1,500 Native Americans, commonly referred to as the Kashaya-Pomo Indian tribe, which was scattered along the coast and up to 30 miles inland. Russia had been pushing its influence eastward for hundreds of years, since the time of Ivan the Terrible. By 1809, when Ivan Kuskov of the Russian-American Company first landed at Bodega Bay, Russians had crossed Siberia, established settlements on the Aleutian Islands and in Alaska, and were hoping to gain a foothold lower on the North American continent. In the video at the moment, we've just entered the fort, and the camera is pointing in the direction that we will walk from building to blockhouse to, there it is, the chapel, etc. So this map shows the visitor center in the upper left. We walked down the path to the fort, which is in the lower right area. Once we're there, we have already entered into the gate that's in the center of the left portion of that, and we'll be going from building to building. Back to the story of Fort Ross. In 1812, Ivan Kuskov returned to build his trading company's fort, accompanied by a few dozen Russians and larger numbers of Aleutian and Alaskan natives. The Kashaya-Pomo tribe reportedly let Kuskov build on the site after he gave them 3 blankets, 3 pairs of breeches, 2 axes, 3 hoes, and some beads. Fort Ross, whose name stems from the word Rossiya, meaning Russia, thrived for a few years on sea otter pelt trading. However, by 1828, the Russian-American Company informed the head office that the species had finally been almost completely exterminated, at least along the coast, and hunting sea otters did not bring profits that amounted to anything sustainable. One alternative source of funding the Russians pursued was agriculture. They had some luck growing fruits and vegetables. In 1818, a Russian officer wrote that gardens had yielded a 48-pound horseradish, 54-pound pumpkin, and 12-pound turnip. From 1816 to 1823, Fort Ross constructed the first of 4 ships produced on California's coast. Ranching developed to the point where 1,700 cattle grazed there in 1841. But by that year, the fort was losing tens of thousands of rubles every year. By the way, the day that I visited, some previous visitor had scribbled something in the chapel sand. I think it says, "Made Russia Great Again," which is a play on Trump and MAGA and his priorities. Anyway, in 1841, the Russians did sell the fort to John Sutter for $30,000 in wheat installments over 3 years, thereby abandoning Russians' attempts along the California coast to inhabit it to any extent. At Fort Ross, they left behind 2 blockhouse towers with a total of 26 gun posts that were designed to protect against an attack from the Spanish that never happened. Since being acquired by the state of California in 1906, the fort has undergone extensive reconstruction work. Today, the Rochev House is the only remaining structure that contains Russian materials. The Kuskov House and officials' quarters also are freestanding within the stockade. There is no trace of some of the other buildings. The chapel was introduced in the 1820s, and it's a pleasant place from which to regard the rest of the yard, which is enclosed by 1,087 feet of redwood fencing. A bell, which you saw earlier outside the chapel, features Russian words in the Cyrillic alphabet. Fort Ross is about a 2 hour and 45-minute drive from Sacramento and 2 hours from San Francisco. This building was closed. I assume it always has been. Well, I hope you've enjoyed looking around Fort Ross. It's a quiet place, certainly low tech. I like to reflect when I come here about the roller coaster relations between our country and Russia, which, for much of the past century was the Soviet Union. There have been many ups and downs. And what's going on now, I have no beef with the Russian people. The Russian government, however, some people in our country think that the Russian government is our friend. In my opinion, that's absurd, that's shameful, and it's dangerous. Things have really degraded in the last year. Again, just my opinion. I hope you share it. And I hope we can all talk about it and come to some better situation soon. Anyway, thanks again. We'll see you next time.